I have a homework assignment for you. You may not think that to be too much of a reasonable thing. I'm not going to worry too much about it. You don't really have to do this if you don't want to. You can just sort of think about it yourself and come to some conclusions. But basically, I want for you to get out on the road when you have the chance, and I want you to look at the cars around you. Really look at the cars around you. And I want you to try and figure out who's driving, particularly cars in front of you. But in general, I want you to try and make it your business to try and figure out who's behind the wheel of a given car. You're going to notice some interesting things when you do this, and we're going to talk about that today on Traffic Stop, which is our subject for the current daily summation that I'm doing at this very moment from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, I'm Kurt. I'm glad to have you along today, whether it's on Rumble, on podcast, on the YouTube. Today is Tuesday, the 11th of May of 2021, and I just wanted to talk about the idea of traffic stop. And here's what I want to kind of put out there. There are people out there who are arguing that law enforcement officers are targeting, say, for example, black folks. This is one of the common ones, one of the ones they talk about. They'll talk about some other people too. Young people is a perfect example. And in some senses, both of these are true, but not for the reasons that you might imagine. So you're driving around in your car, and you come up behind another car on the roadway, and the car is a minivan. And you pull up to the side of the minivan, and there's a young black male driving the minivan. Did you expect that? Well, maybe not, but the thing is, it is possible. It's totally possible for that to happen. Sometimes folks take what they can get. Sometimes they're happy with a minivan and really want that. They may be young, they may be black, but they have kids, and they have to get their kids around like the rest of us do. The point of all of this, the point that I'm making here is, police officers don't just stop cars randomly as a rule. I'm not saying there aren't circumstances that I disagree with, like sobriety checkpoints, where they do exactly that, but I am telling you that largely cops don't just decide, I think I'm going to stop that vehicle. What they do is they have a computer in their car, and they look at your plates and they run your plates, and particularly if they find that there's something wrong with your car, like a missing tail light, or your lights aren't on and it's dark outside, or your tags appear to be expired, or whatever. So they run your tags and they find out whose vehicle that is. Whose vehicle is this? Now, I'm going to read my notes real quick just to give you an idea where this all started for me. And it's sort of evolved as I've thought about it. My notes say this: I've been stopped by police multiple times in my life. In most instances, officers couldn't see who was in my vehicle with any certainty. I've never once had law enforcement approach my car with even so much as a hand on a sidearm, much less a drawn service weapon. How could this be? The answer is cops generally have access to computers in their vehicles. They usually know to whom a vehicle belongs. The young man who was accidentally shot recently while attempting to flee police was known to be a person with a warrant, and by the way, for a violent crime. That's why weapons were drawn. Do you honestly believe officers would draw their firearms for air fresheners on the rearview mirror, or even expired plates? These were my notes. This is what I thought. Now, let me explain a little bit. Let me expound and think about this a little bit, and you can think about it with me. I've been stopped for expired plates, where I couldn't afford to pay sales tax on my vehicle because of the unfortunate way the state of Arkansas does its tags. You have to pay your sales tax before you can get your tags. So you're supposedly not able to drive your car until you pay the sales tax. And if you can't afford to pay the sales tax, you have two choices. You can either drive the car illegally, or you can get where you're going without use of your automobile. Okay? So I've had instances where I had expired tags, and I'll just tell you that when that happens, it's hard to get insurance as well. So I've had instances where I had no insurance for a time. Now, I'm a pretty careful driver, so mostly that's not much of a problem for me. And funnily enough, anytime I've ever been in an accident, I've had insurance at that point. That having been said, though, what I'm trying to say to you is, even with expired tags, they knew the person who owned the vehicle didn't have warrants outstanding on them. I don't know if they had Access to my age? Probably not, but possibly, because the DOB is on my date of birth is on my driver's license. I don't know exactly completely what they had access to, but I'll tell you this. I've never once had a law enforcement officer approach my vehicle, blacked out back windows or not, with their hand on their sidearm, or in any way even all that cautiously, quite frankly. And I've literally had lady cops pull me over. I had a lady cop pull me over because they put the wrong thing on my registration, and it wasn't even my fault. It was on the registration before I bought the vehicle, literally, and it just transferred from person to person to person like it does. But the point is, I've never once even been asked to step out of my vehicle. Never once. Why? Why is that true? And why is it true that for other individuals, they are asked to step out of their vehicles? Well, I can tell you for the fellow that I referenced earlier on, he had an outstanding warrant that was related to firearms. And I don't think it was just illegal possession. I think it was literally something like armed robbery. I forget his name, the guy who went through the business and finally ended up dying in, was it Philadelphia? I don't remember. But anyway, you know the guy I'm talking about because he's literally famous, Derek Chauvin having supposedly killed him, a thing I'm still not sure is true to this day. I let law enforcement and the courts do their job. I'm afraid in this case they did it wrong, and hopefully something will happen as a result of that, but you never know. And I'm not going to spend too much time worrying about it. I hate that it's true. I hope that things work out better for Mr. Chauvin. I'm sorry that the fella died. I really don't think that's a good thing, but I don't think he died from the things that people want to say that he died from. It's pretty likely he died from an overdose of fentanyl or some other illicit substance. That's very likely. Okay? Floyd, George Floyd, right? I don't like what the police officer did to him. I can believe that it's a standard tactic or technique. But here's the thing. The police dealt with him in a lot of the way that they did because he had literally been involved in violent activities with firearms, home invasion. The guy who got shot getting into his car with kids that he really couldn't claim in the back. He was the dad, I guess, but he really couldn't claim him in the back of the vehicle when he was known to carry knives and attack officers. Yeah, well, that's probably going to happen in that circumstance. And I'm not trying to be rude or mean, and I'm not trying to say necessarily that sort of thing doesn't happen with white folks periodically as well. But I think that you need to understand something. If my taillight is out or my tags are expired, I'm going to get pulled over periodically by police officers. That's just going to happen. It's going to be less likely for me. Why? Because I don't have any outstanding warrants for my arrest, people. And years ago, I tell people this, years ago I worked with a guy who had been one of the youngest cops in the state of Oregon, maybe the youngest at the time he was there. And he told me something. Hands at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. Don't move your hands unless you're told to do so. Don't do anything unless you're told to do so. Be polite to the person who's pulling you over, and you're going to find, and cooperative, and you're going to find mostly things are going to go fine for you. Okay? And I'm here to tell you, I've literally avoided tickets by politeness and hands at 10 and 2. There were times when I should have gotten tickets at various points, and I didn't. And the simple reason that I didn't get them is my hands were at 10 and at 2 on that steering wheel where the officer could see him when he walked up on my vehicle. I was a polite individual, and even though I was doing things that I shouldn't have been doing, reckless driving when I was much younger, right, is a perfect example. That police officer didn't even write me a warning. He didn't even write me a warning, and it wasn't just because I was white. Yes, sir. No, sir. Hands at 10 and 2. Have the appropriate paperwork. Give him the appropriate paperwork. What is it that Larry Elder likes to say? Comply, don't die, right? That's something that he likes to say. And it's true. It's just true. And maybe you won't even get taken in, though if you've got outstanding warrants, probably the chances are pretty good you will. So you need to understand that. All right, I'm running out of time. I need to go ahead and wrap this up, so I'm going to do exactly that. I hope you're having a good day today, that things are going well for you. This is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I am your host. I'm Kurt. Today is Thursday, the 11th of May of 2021. Tomorrow will be Wednesday, the 12th of May of 2021. Had the wrong day on my notes. Welcome to everybody who's been here on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube. Thank you for sitting through my whole video. Remember that you can like the video on YouTube and that you can give me a positive rumble on Rumble. Of course, you can always comment to tell me what you think of what I've said, and I'll do my best to pay attention to that. The subject for today's video has been traffic stop. Tomorrow we're going to talk about level of authority, and this is something that I think I've covered before, but I think I'm going to cover it from a slightly different angle. I'd have to look at my notes to see exactly what I had in mind when I chose that topic. Sometimes the things that I choose are quite distant from when I actually get a chance to do them. Hoping you're having a good day today. We're almost to that middle of the weekday. That'll be tomorrow, as I've said, and hopefully we will see you again on tomorrow's Daily Summation. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Tuesday, the 11th of May of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that, and you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.